The Galactic Council's war table fell silent as General Vex studied the human delegation. Then a retired cafeteria worker stepped forward, holding a rifle older than her grandson. The Starlight cruiser's observation bay hummed with nervous energy. Fleet Commander Thalrak adjusted his biooptics, struggling to reconcile the data feeds with what his own eyes reported. Beside him, Ambassador Vorn of the Krill Dominion tapped a claw rhythmically against the transparasteel, a stress habit she'd never quite broken since Earth joined their alliance 72 cycles ago. "I'm telling you, this was a miscalculation," Vorn hissed, her vocal translator struggling with the subsonic undertones of her species. "We should have spent another decade evaluating them before handing over defensive access." Thalrak's three eyes blinked in sequence, his people's equivalent of a heavy sigh. The Council ratified their membership. "We're here to test, not to second-guess." Below, spread across the cruiser's lower staging deck, 30 humans waited in casual clothes, jeans, jackets, one man in flip-flops. They looked less like a military detachment and more like tourists who'd missed their connecting shuttle. Commander Elena Vasquez stood at the front of the human group, arms loose at her sides, wearing an expression that Thalrak had learned to dread. Quiet confidence bordering on mischief. Humans had a way of looking at you like they were sharing a private joke with the universe, and it bothered him more than he wanted to admit. "Commander Vasquez," Thalrak broadcast through the ship's speakers, his translator smoothing his native clicks into Galactic Standard. "Please identify your designated marksman for today's qualification. We need to begin." The human commander's smile widened. She turned to the group behind her, 30 civilians, none in uniform, including a woman knitting something gray and a middle-aged man reading a paperback novel. "Here's the interesting part, General," Vasquez said, her voice carrying an amusement that translated flawlessly. "We don't exactly do designated marksmen the way you're thinking." Vorn leaned forward, her cranial ridges tightening. "Explain. Every military coalition in known space maintains specialized sharpshooters. This is standard tactical doctrine." Vasquez shrugged, a gesture Thalrak's database labeled as casual dismissal among Terrans. "Oh, we have specialists. Don't get me wrong. There are people back home who can do things with a scope that would make your elites weep. But here's what your intelligence briefings missed." She paused, clearly savoring the moment. "Every single civilian behind me could pass your test. Hell, pick someone at random from a shopping mall on Earth. They won't miss." The observation deck went absolutely silent. Even the ship's background vibration seemed to hold its breath. Thalrak felt his primary cardiac organ stutter while his secondary kicked into overdrive. This was either the most absurd lie he'd ever heard, or the most terrifying truth. "You're joking," Vorn said flatly. "Wish I was," Vasquez replied. And the unnerving thing was, beneath the humor, she sounded completely serious. "Fine," Thalrak said, his voice tighter than intended. "Pick someone from your group. We'll run the standard qualification." He scanned the humans below. His gaze settled on an older female near the back, slightly built, gray-streaked hair pulled into a loose ponytail, wearing a faded university sweatshirt. She was currently sipping from a thermal mug and laughing at something the person next to her had said. "Her," Thalrak announced, pointing. "The one in blue." Every human on the deck turned to look. The woman, realizing she'd been selected, nearly spit out her coffee. Vasquez walked over to her, grinning like a cat who'd found an unattended bird. "Congratulations, Margaret, you're up." Margaret apparently looked horrified. "Elena, I'm 62. I haven't touched a firearm in 8 months. I came on this trip to visit my granddaughter on the diplomatic corps. I'm not even reserves anymore." "Retired military?" Vorn asked through the speakers. 25 years Air Force, Vasquez confirmed. "Supply logistics." She ordered toilet paper and filed requisition forms. "Never saw combat." This kept getting worse. Thalrak felt a headache forming behind his primary optical nerve, which shouldn't have been biologically possible for his species. "Commander Vasquez, the Council requires a serious demonstration of Terran marksmanship, not a theatrical performance." "Oh, you'll get a demonstration," Vasquez assured him. "Margaret, you good?" Margaret sighed, the kind of deep, world-weary exhalation that needed no translation. Fine. But when my daughter asks why her mother embarrassed Earth in front of the galaxy, I'm telling her you made me. Deal. The training range materialized through holographic projectors, a standard coalition course. Targets would appear at varying distances, moving in unpredictable patterns. The shooter had to identify and eliminate threats while avoiding civilian decoys. Most coalition snipers achieved a 73% accuracy rate, which was considered elite. Margaret was handed a standard Terran rifle, an M4 variant, Thalrak's files noted. She checked it with movements so smooth and economical they seemed unconscious. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Range parameters set, the automated system announced. Commencing evaluation in 3, 2, 1. First target appeared at 800 meters, a distance that challenged most species' natural vision. Margaret raised the rifle, aimed for exactly 1.3 seconds, and fired. Target's threat indicator went dark. Fluke, Vorn muttered. Second target at 1,000 meters, moving laterally at combat speed. Margaret tracked, compensated for wind drift the simulation had added, and fired. Direct hit. Thalrak leaned closer to his monitors. Impressive, but still within theoretical possibility for elite operators. Then the simulation escalated. 5 targets appeared simultaneously, scattered from 600 to 1,500 meters. Some stationary, some moving, all at different elevations. A scenario designed to overwhelm, forcing the shooter to prioritize and accept that some would escape. Margaret didn't hesitate. 5 shots in rapid succession, barely seeming to re-aim between them. 5 targets went dark. 5 perfect hits. Total elapsed time, 7 seconds. By the founders, Vorn breathed. Crank it up, Vasquez said casually. She's not even breathing hard. The simulation obliged. Targets began appearing faster, at more extreme distances in worsening conditions. Smoke, variable lighting, simulated counterfire. By any objective standard, it had become impossible. Margaret kept shooting. More importantly, Margaret kept hitting. Thalrak watched in growing disbelief as this retired supply clerk, who probably spent her days now gardening and spoiling grandchildren, systematically dismantled every challenge the simulation could generate. Her accuracy didn't just remain high. It was absolute. 100%. Perfect. This violates biological possibility, Thalrak said, no longer caring that his voice betrayed shock. No organic being has this level of precision without genetic enhancement or cybernetic augmentation. She's completely natural, Vasquez said, and Thalrak could hear the grin. Margaret's about as baseline human as they come. 2 kids, 4 grandkids makes a mean pot roast. Average Terran civilian. There is nothing average about what we're watching, Vorn said. Her claws had actually left scratches on the armrest. The test concluded. Final accuracy rating, 99.8%. The only missed shot had been a deliberate pass on a civilian target partially obscured behind a legitimate threat. A trick question Margaret correctly identified and refused to engage. She set the rifle down, rolled her shoulders, and stretched. Okay, that was mildly entertaining. Can I finish my coffee now? Margaret, Thalrak said, his voice slightly strangled. You just outperformed our top 3 coalition marksmen. Combined. That's lovely, dear, Margaret replied, patting Vasquez on the shoulder as she walked past. Elena, tell your wife we're still on for dinner Thursday. I'm bringing that lasagna she likes. As Margaret rejoined the other humans, who were congratulating her with the casual ease of people who'd witnessed something completely ordinary, Thalrak felt his understanding of Terran capabilities undergo a fundamental revision. Commander Vasquez, he said slowly, I believe an explanation is in order. Vasquez finally dropped some of the amusement, though her eyes still held that dangerous spark humans got when they were about to reveal something consequential. General Ambassador, here's what the Council should have researched before inviting us in. Humans are persistence predators. You understand that term? Predators who exhaust prey through extended pursuit, Vorn said. Several coalition species have similar evolutionary backgrounds. Right. But here's what makes us different. On Earth, we didn't just chase with our legs. We chased with our eyes, our hands, our tools. For approximately 2 million years, if a human wanted to eat, they had to hit a moving target with a thrown object. Hit it accurately enough to kill. Miss and you starved. Your children starved. Your genetic line ended. Thalrak felt his biology responding to the implications. Evolution through targeting. Selection pressure based on marksmanship. Every human who survived to reproduce, Vasquez continued, her voice taking on a quality that suggested this was rarely explained, had to hit targets. Not sometimes, not maybe. Again and again and again. The ones who couldn't, they didn't make it. Their genes went extinct. She gestured to the group behind her. These aren't special forces, General. This is baseline humanity. This is what we all are, because anything less didn't survive the Ice Age. Margaret's good because every one of her ancestors for 2 million years was good. The genetic memory is built in. You're claiming every human possesses this capability? Vorn's voice had gone very quiet. With basic training, yes. We start teaching kids to throw accurately around age 3. It's a game to us. By adulthood, hitting targets is as natural as breathing. More natural, actually. We have to be taught to breathe consciously during certain activities. Aiming is instinct. Thalrak accessed his database, searching for human recreational activities. What he found made his blood run cold. Baseball, basketball, darts, archery, shooting ranges, axe throwing, bowling, golf. Dozens of activities all centered on the same core skill. Humans spent their free time practicing the one thing evolution had already optimized them for fun. How accurate can your elite specialists achieve? Thalrak asked, unsure he wanted the answer. Vasquez's grin returned, but this time it carried an edge. Current record holder put a round through a target at 3,540 meters. That's over 2 miles, General. He was shooting at something he could barely see, accounting for wind, Earth's rotation, air pressure, temperature gradients, and about 20 other variables. Know what his unit designation was? I suspect you're about to inform us, Vorn said dryly. Canadian Special Forces, but here's the fun part. After he made that shot, reporters asked how he felt about setting a world record. Know what he said? Vasquez paused. He said it was okay, but his grandfather had been a better shot. His grandfather, a civilian farmer from the 1950s who'd never used modern optics or ballistic computers. Just iron sights and instinct. Thalrak pulled up the Coalition's combat projections. The scenarios they'd been running for integrating humanity into their defense network. Every single model was suddenly catastrophically wrong. You seem troubled, General, Vasquez observed. Commander, in our last war against the Xylos swarm, we lost 47,000 soldiers to enemy marksmen over 4 years. Those marksmen were the swarm's most elite warriors, trained from emergence in long-range assassination. We couldn't counter them because we couldn't match their numbers. They had perhaps 400 masters across their entire force. Okay, Vasquez said slowly, waiting. You're telling me humanity, population 8 billion, could theoretically field 8 billion marksmen? The silence that followed was absolute. Vasquez's expression shifted, losing some of its humor as she realized Thalrak had just understood something fundamental about human warfare. In theory, she said carefully, though we'd never need to mobilize everyone. But yes, General, if Earth was ever existentially threatened, if every human had to pick up a weapon and defend their home, you'd have 8 billion people who don't miss. Vorn made a sound like escaping gas. The Council needs to be informed immediately. Why? Vasquez asked, and now there was a challenge in her voice. Because we're afraid, Thalrak admitted, seeing no point in deception. Commander, you must understand how this appears. We invited humanity as partners, as allies. But what we're seeing suggests we've invited something far more dangerous into our midst. Because we can aim, Vasquez shook her head. General, that's exactly backwards. You should be glad we're on your side because, yeah, we can all shoot, and yeah, in a fight that makes us terrifying. But here's what those Xylos marksmen never figured out. She paused, ensuring she had their full attention. Humans don't just use this skill for killing. We use it for everything. Surgery, that's just precise targeting of tissue. Engineering, targeting parts to fit perfectly. Art, targeting brushstrokes exactly where they need to go. Music, targeting your fingers to hit exactly the right notes. This ability you're so worried about, it's what makes us good at building, at fixing, at healing. We don't just aim weapons, we aim solutions. That's a pleasant sentiment, Vorn said, but it doesn't change the tactical implications. No, Vasquez agreed. It doesn't. You want to know what those implications are? Fine. If humanity ever goes to war, really goes to war, we won't need years of training programs or specialized schools. We hand out rifles, point at the enemy, and trust that 2 million years of evolution will do the rest. That's terrifying, I get it. But here's what should really scare you. Thalrock waited, knowing whatever came next would be the real revelation. We don't want to go to war, Vasquez said simply. We spent most of our history fighting each other, and we learned exactly how good we are at killing. We got so good we created weapons capable of sterilizing our entire planet multiple times over. We stared into that abyss and we collectively decided never again. That's why we're here, General. Not to threaten the Council, but to make sure the Council never has to find out what humanity at war actually looks like. Thalrock accessed historical records, finding information on human conflicts, the World Wars, the Cold War, the nuclear stockpiles humans had built, and then miraculously mostly dismantled. A species that had climbed to the top of their food chain, developed the ability to extinct themselves and then chose not to. You're saying humanity is deliberately restraining itself, Vorn said. I'm saying humanity learned from our mistakes, Vasquez corrected. We're good at killing, great at it even, but we discovered we're better at building, better at healing, better at creating, and we'd rather do that. But make no mistake, the capability is still there. Every civilian walking around Earth could be militarized in weeks if necessary. Every grandmother, every shopkeeper, every artist and teacher and engineer. They'd all pick up weapons, and they'd all hit their targets. Thalrock made a decision. The Council needs full disclosure on human capabilities. Complete transparency. Agreed, Vasquez said. But maybe start with the good stuff first. Show them our medical advances, our engineering, our arts. Let them see what humans choose to do with our abilities before you scare them with what we could do. And if the Council decides humanity is too dangerous to remain in the coalition? Vorn asked. Vasquez's expression went very serious. Then we go home, Ambassador. We leave peacefully and we hope you never need us. But if something comes along that threatens the Council, something big enough that you wish you had 8 billion marksmen on your side? She paused. That call button works both ways. Below, the humans were packing up their equipment, laughing and chatting like they hadn't just redefined the coalition's military understanding. Margaret was showing someone pictures on a phone, probably grandchildren based on the cooing sounds. One more question, Thalrock said. If Margaret is representative of baseline human capability, what can your actual elite marksman do? Vasquez smiled, but this time there was nothing friendly in it. It was the expression of a predator remembering the hunt. You really don't want to know, General. Trust me on that. Some things are better left as pleasant mysteries. As the delegation prepared to leave, Thalrock opened a new file and began drafting his report to the Council. How did you explain that you'd accidentally recruited a species where every member was a potential master marksman? How did you convey that their restraint was more impressive than their capability? More importantly, how did you sleep at night knowing billions of humans were going about their daily lives, unaware that they were all carrying the genetic legacy of 2 million years of precision evolutionary pressure? They're not going to believe this, Vorn said, joining him at the console. I know, Thalrock said, but we have the footage, the data, and Margaret's performance to prove it's real. Do you think they'll vote to remove humanity from the coalition? Thalrock thought about Vasquez's words, choosing to build rather than destroy. He thought about Margaret, a grandmother who just wanted to have coffee with her daughter, casually demonstrating marksmanship that would make her a legendary warrior in any other species. "No," he said finally. "I think we're going to vote to make very, very sure we never give humanity a reason to remember their predators." 3 weeks later, Thalrak found himself in an unexpected situation. Instead of presenting humanity as a threat, he was attending a cultural exchange dinner at the Terran embassy. The irony wasn't lost on him. Ambassador Mei Lin, Earth's official representative to the Council, had insisted that understanding humanity required more than watching them shoot targets. "Fleet Commander Thalrak, Ambassador Vorn, welcome," Mei said warmly, gesturing to a long table where other council members were already seated. "I hope you're hungry. We've prepared dishes from 5 different Earth regions." Thalrak's olfactory senses were overwhelmed. His species typically consumed nutrient paste. The concept of food as social experience was foreign to him. "This is unnecessary," Vorn said, though her tone lacked its usual sharpness. The past weeks had softened her stance, particularly after reviewing Earth's complete historical archives. "We're here to discuss military integration." "And we will," May assured her. "But first we eat. It's a human thing. We do our best talking over meals." Commander Vasquez appeared from a side entrance, now wearing civilian clothes. With her was Margaret, along with several other humans from the demonstration. "General, good to see you," Vasquez said, extending her hand. A greeting gesture Thalrak had learned to reciprocate, though his appendages didn't work quite the same way. "I want you to meet someone who can explain humanity better than any military briefing." Dr. Samuel Chen, a xenobiologist who'd studied non-human species for 2 decades, stepped forward. "The general wants to understand why you're all natural shots. I figured a scientist could explain better than a soldier." He adjusted his glasses, another human affectation Thalrak found oddly endearing. "It's actually fascinating from an evolutionary perspective. Most predator species in the galaxy evolved one of 2 strategies: ambush or pack hunting. Humans did both, but added a 3rd element nobody else developed to the same degree. Ranged combat," Thalrak replied. "Exactly, but it goes deeper. What do you know about human neurological structure?" "Very little beyond basic anatomy." Dr. Chen pulled up a holographic display of a human brain. "This is our visual cortex. Approximately 30% of our brain is dedicated to processing visual information. Compare that to most species, where it's closer to 10 to 15%. We have more brain matter devoted to seeing than almost any other function." A representative from the Thresh Collective, a species known for telepathic abilities, leaned forward. "Why would evolution favor such disproportionate visual processing?" "Because we needed it to survive," Dr. Chen explained. "When early humans started hunting with thrown weapons, they had to solve an incredibly complex physics problem in real time. Track a moving target, calculate speed and trajectory, account for wind resistance, gravity, projectile weight, and their own throwing strength. Then execute all of that in the 2 or 3 seconds before the target escaped. That's an enormous computational load," Vorn said, "which is why our brains evolved to handle it unconsciously. When Margaret shot those targets, she wasn't doing complex mathematics. Her brain was running calculations that would require a computer for most species. But for her, it was instinct. Point, shoot, hit. The processing happens below conscious thought." Margaret, who'd been quietly eating something called pasta, looked up. "It's like asking how you breathe, General. You don't think about it. Your body just knows. Same with us and aiming. Show me a target, my brain figures out how to hit it. Always has, always will." "But surely this ability degrades without constant training," a minor counselor from a species known for military discipline interjected. "Actually, no," Dr. Chen said. "Studies show humans retain muscle memory and spatial calculation abilities for decades, even without practice." Margaret hadn't fired a weapon in 8 months, but her brain still remembered every shot she'd ever taken, every throw, every aimed movement from her entire life. It's all stored, ready to be accessed. So the skill doesn't degrade because it's not really a learned skill. It's fundamental biology. Bingo, Vasquez said, raising a glass. Which brings us to why Ambassador May wanted this dinner. You're all scared of what humans could do in a war, and honestly, you should be. But what you're missing is what we actually do with this ability 99.9% of the time. May stood, commanding attention without raising her voice. Counselors General, Ambassador, you've seen our capacity for precision. Now I want to show you what we choose to create with it. The room's display screens lit up with images, a surgeon's hands moving with microscopic precision to reattach severed nerves, an artist painting a mural, each brushstroke placed exactly where needed, an engineer assembling a quantum processor with tolerances measured in nanometers, a musician's fingers dancing across strings. Every human you see here, May continued, is using the same neurological capability that makes us dangerous. The same brain structure that lets us hit targets also lets us perform life-saving surgery, create art that moves souls, build technology that advances civilizations, and play music that transcends language. A new image appeared, human children in a school throwing balls into hoops, laughing. We start young, May said, not because we're training warriors, though that's a side effect. We do it because accuracy, precision, and spatial awareness make us better at everything. Better doctors, better engineers, better artists, Dr. Chen added. There's actually a strong correlation between fine motor control and cognitive development in humans. Children who play throwing games show improved mathematical abilities, better problem-solving skills, and enhanced social development. We're not just teaching them to aim, we're teaching them to think. The minor counselor spoke up. This is all very impressive, but it doesn't address the core concern. A population where every individual has military-relevant capabilities represents an asymmetric threat the Council has never encountered. You're absolutely right, Vasquez said, surprising everyone. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this. If Earth ever went full mobilization, we could field a fighting force that would terrify any enemy. But here's what your threat assessments are missing. She stood, moving beside May. The reason humans are so good at precision isn't just biological, it's cultural. We've built entire civilizations around the concept of hitting your target. Our sports, our arts, our manufacturing, our medicine, everything requires accuracy. And you know what happens to a species that makes accuracy their cultural cornerstone? Enlighten us, Vorn said dryly. We become really, really good at understanding consequences. Every human grows up knowing that actions have precise results. Throw the ball wrong, you lose the game. Place the brushstroke wrong, the painting fails. Position the scalpel wrong, the patient dies. We live in a world where small mistakes have big impacts, and we've internalized that lesson across our entire species. Precision isn't our weapon, it's our wisdom, May nodded. Which is why Earth's crime rates are statistically lower than most council worlds. Why our industrial accident rates are minimal. Why our pilots have the best safety records in known space. We don't just aim weapons accurately, we aim everything accurately, including our choices. Thalrak accessed his database, cross-referencing human statistics with other council species. The data was startling. Humans did indeed have lower rates of accidental deaths, industrial failures, and transportation incidents. Their precision extended to every aspect of their civilization. You're arguing that the same trait that makes you dangerous also makes you safe, the minor counselor said slowly. We're arguing that precision breeds responsibility, May corrected. A species that never misses learns very quickly to be careful about what they're aiming at. Margaret spoke up again, her voice carrying a weight that silenced the room. Counselors, I'm 62 years old. I've lived through times when humans were testing nuclear weapons in our own atmosphere, poisoning our own planet because we thought we could control the consequences. I watched the Cold War, when two human nations pointed enough weapons at each other to extinct our entire species. You want to know why we're so careful now? Because we learned what happens when a species with perfect aim stops caring about what they're shooting at. The silence that followed was heavy. Thalrak found himself recalculating everything. Humans weren't restraining themselves out of weakness or fear. They were restraining themselves because they'd already experienced their own potential for destruction and consciously chosen a different path. The Council's primary concern, Vorn said carefully, is that humanity's capabilities could destabilize the existing power balance. Several member species have expressed worry that their own security forces would be inadequate compared to even civilian human populations. Valid concern, Vasquez acknowledged. So here's what Earth is proposing. Full transparency on our capabilities, which we've already started. Joint training programs where we teach other species our techniques. And most importantly, a mutual defense pact that makes it clear we're investing in the Council's success, not planning to undermine it. You'd teach other species your accuracy techniques? The minor counselor asked, disbelief evident. Why not? Dr. Chen interjected. The neurological structures are different, sure, but the principles are universal. Focused training, muscle memory development, understanding trajectory physics. We can't make other species into humans, but we can help them improve their own capabilities significantly. Thalrak's mind raced through implications. If humanity shared their training methods, it would help balance the perceived threat. More than that, it would demonstrate genuine commitment to the coalition's collective security. There's another factor you should consider, May said, pulling up new data. Earth's military doctrine is primarily defensive. Yes, we can all shoot, but our strategic planning focuses on deterrence and protection, not conquest. Our entire approach to warfare is built on making aggression too costly to attempt. Because you learned from your own history, Thalrak said, understanding clicking into place. Exactly. We fought ourselves for thousands of years, and we got very, very good at killing each other. So good we nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. Every military strategy in our databases is informed by that history. We know what works because we've tried everything, and we know what costs because we've paid those prices. A new counselor spoke, representing the Volian Consortium, a trading empire that valued stability above all else. Ambassador May, you paint a compelling picture, but words are easy. How can humanity prove its intentions are genuine? May smiled. I'm glad you asked. Over the past 3 weeks, Earth has been working on a proposal. With the Council's approval, we'd like to establish a joint training facility on our moon. Any Council species can send candidates to learn from human instructors, military, medical, engineering, any field where precision matters. We'd share our techniques freely. That would give Council species direct access to human training methods, Vorn observed, and insight into human capabilities. That's the point, Vasquez said. You want to know what we can do? Come learn from us. See how we teach, what we prioritize, how we think. Complete transparency. Such a facility would also allow the Council to observe human instruction methods, to ensure nothing problematic is being taught. We're counting on it, May said. Look, we understand the concern. A species where grandmothers can outshoot your elite soldiers is scary. But we'd rather be scary and trusted than scary and isolated. Integration benefits everyone. Thalrak made his decision. I will recommend to the full Council that we accept Earth's proposal, with conditions, of course. Oversight committees, regular inspections, and limits on certain weapon technologies until trust is fully established. Reasonable conditions, May agreed. Though I should warn you, once your people start training with us, they're going to come back changed. Humans have this infectious enthusiasm for excellence. It tends to spread. Margaret laughed. What she means is we're competitive as hell and we make everything into a game. Your soldiers are going to come home wanting to beat their personal bests, and suddenly your entire military culture shifts toward constant improvement. Fair warning. That sounds, Vorn said slowly, actually beneficial. The dinner continued, conversation shifting to lighter topics. Thalrak found himself genuinely enjoying the experience, something he hadn't anticipated. The food was strange but interesting, each dish requiring precise preparation that reflected humanity's obsession with accuracy. Even their cuisine was a demonstration of their evolutionary gifts. As the evening wound down, Thalrak found himself alone with Vasquez and Dr. Chen on a balcony overlooking the embassy's observation deck. Below, Earth was visible through the transparent flooring, a blue and white sphere that had somehow produced the galaxy's most precisely calibrated apex predators. You're still worried, Vasquez observed. I can tell. I'd be a fool not to be. Thalrak admitted. Commander, you've been honest about human capabilities. Be honest about this. If the Council faced an existential threat, something that required total warfare, what would humanity actually contribute? Vasquez was quiet for a long moment, staring at her homeworld below. When she spoke, her voice carried none of its usual humor. General, if something threatens the Council badly enough that Earth mobilizes, you'll see something that hasn't happened in human history. You'll see 8 billion people with one purpose, all aiming at the same target. No missed shots, no wasted effort, just pure, focused, precise application of force. We'd turn our entire civilization into a weapon, and we'd wield it with the same accuracy we use for everything else. But here's the thing you need to understand. We'd only do that if there was no other choice, because we know exactly what that looks like, and we know we can never go back once we start. We'd win, General. We'd absolutely win. But the cost would be remembering that we're capable of it. That's what scares me most, Thalrak said quietly. Not what you can do, but that you understand the cost so clearly and choose restraint anyway. It's called wisdom, Dr. Chen said. We learned it the hard way through millions of casualties and near-extinction events. The galaxy's lucky we figured it out before we left our solar system. Can you imagine if we'd joined the Council before we learned these lessons? Thalrak shuddered, his biology responding to the hypothetical. A humanity that hadn't learned restraint, spreading across the galaxy with their precision and their weapons. It would have been catastrophic. Instead, Vasquez continued, you get us now. Still dangerous but focused on building instead of destroying. Still capable of perfect shots but choosing to aim at problems instead of people. We're the same species that nearly killed ourselves, General. We just grew up. A communication alert interrupted them. Vorn's voice crackled through. Thalrak, the Council has called an emergency session. The Xylo swarm has launched an invasion of the outer territories. They're requesting military support from all member species. The three exchanged glances. This was the moment that would define humanity's role in the Council. A real threat requiring a real response. How many ships is Earth committing? Thalrak asked. 50 vessels with full crews, May responded immediately. 6,000 personnel. And General, they're not all military. We're sending engineers, medics, and logistical coordinators. People like Margaret, who can think precisely under pressure. The Xylos are expecting a conventional military response, Vorn said. Long-range battles, attrition warfare. They have numerical superiority. Vasquez smiled, and Thalrak recognized the expression now. It wasn't arrogance. It was the confidence of a predator that had successfully evolved for 2 million years. Then they're in for a surprise, Vasquez said. Because humans don't do conventional warfare. We do precision warfare. And we don't miss. 6 weeks later, Thalrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the aftermath of what military historians were already calling the Precision Campaign. The Xylo swarm's invasion had collapsed in record time, not because humanity had brought overwhelming force, but because they'd brought overwhelming accuracy. Every shot fired by human vessels had hit critical systems. Every boarding action had targeted key infrastructure with surgical precision. Every tactical decision had been calculated with the kind of accuracy that came from a species that thought in trajectories. But what impressed Thalrak most wasn't the military success. It was what had happened after. Human medical teams had immediately begun treating Xylos wounded, with the same precision they applied to combat. Human engineers had started rebuilding damaged stations, their accuracy making reconstruction remarkably efficient, and human diplomats had opened negotiations that acknowledged the swarm's legitimate grievances while establishing clear boundaries. Precision in destruction, precision in healing, precision in diplomacy. Margaret had been part of the logistics team, coordinating supply lines with an accuracy that had turned what should have been chaos into a smoothly running operation. When asked about her contribution, she'd shrugged and said she was just doing the same thing she'd done in the Air Force 40 years ago, making sure the right things got to the right place at the right time. Perfect aim applied to logistics. Vorn joined Thalrak on the observation deck. The Council has voted unanimously to approve full integration of human forces into our defensive network. They've also approved the training facility proposal. I suspected they would, Thalrak said. Hard to argue with results like these. The minor counselor told me something interesting, Vorn continued. His military analysts have been studying human tactics. They've concluded that humanity's greatest weapon isn't their accuracy. It's their ability to apply that accuracy to any problem. Combat, medicine, engineering, diplomacy, they aim at solutions, not just targets. Below, Earth hung in space, beautiful and terrifying. A world that had produced a species capable of perfect precision, taught them the cost of that gift, and then watched as they chose to build instead of destroy. Do you still think they're dangerous? Vorn asked. Thalrak considered the question carefully. Yes, but I also think we're very lucky they're on our side, and I think the galaxy is going to be a very different place now that humanity is part of it. Different how? More precise, Thalrak said, and found himself smiling, despite his species' usual stoicism. As if to punctuate his words, a message came through from Earth. Margaret had sent a group communication to everyone involved in the campaign, a recipe for her famous lasagna, along with an invitation to a celebration dinner at the Terran embassy. Even in victory, humans were thinking about bringing people together over food. Precision applied to community building. Thalrak accepted the invitation, knowing that understanding humanity would be a lifelong process. But at least now he understood the fundamental truth. They were predators who'd learned to aim at better targets. And that made all the difference. The galaxy would never be the same. But looking at Earth, at the humans who'd changed everything simply by being exactly what evolution had made them, Thalrak decided that was probably a good thing. After all, in a universe full of threats and challenges, having allies who never missed seemed like a pretty good advantage.